What if she wasn't pulling away to hurt you, but to reveal you? It doesn't begin with shouting. It begins with silence. One day, the woman who once looked at you like you were her entire world starts looking through you like you're no longer even in it. Her laughter fades. Her eyes harden. She doesn't explain. She just changes. You ask her what's wrong. She says nothing. You try harder. She grows colder. And in that moment, that unbearable tension, most men panic. They apologize for things they didn't do. They offer more affection than she's even asking for. They shrink, soften, regress. All because they don't realize what's really happening. She's not punishing you. She's initiating you. Carl Jung understood this far before the modern world ever gave men words like alpha or empath. He saw that within every man is a mirror, the feminine image inside the masculine soul. And sometimes the woman you love becomes that mirror, not to reflect your strength, but to expose its cracks. This is not about her. This is about you, and whether the man you've become is real enough to remain when her love no longer props you up. She doesn't want flowers. She wants fire, not the kind that flatters or flickers, the kind that endures. And if you're listening for words, you'll miss it entirely, because her initiation doesn't arrive through logic. It comes through silence, through the absence of warmth, through the moments where the soft version of her disappears and something ancient, something raw, rises in its place. This is the moment that breaks most men, not because she raised her voice, but because she stopped trying to make you feel safe. You feel it, don't you? That sick, sinking feeling in your gut when she goes quiet, when her eyes once filled with oceans of approval now reflect nothing, when her body is present but her energy is somewhere else entirely. You think it's about something you did, something you forgot, something you failed to say. So you chase, you explain, you beg for closeness, but she isn't pulling away to hurt you. She's pulling away to see you, the real you. Because this is not rejection. This is ritual. This is initiation. She's testing the structure of the man before her, and not with a checklist, but with contradiction, with chaos, with emotional distance. And here's the truth: if you crumble in this space, if your identity dissolves without her validation, then you were never whole to begin with. This is where the boy dies or the man awakens, and the only way out is through. Most men don't even see the test. They think it's a mood swing, a bad day, a mystery they're supposed to solve. So they apologize for things they never did. They offer reassurances she never asked for. They chase after her affection like it's a prize to win back, not realizing the moment they started chasing, they already failed. Because the test isn't about her feelings, it's about your foundation. She's not looking for answers, she's watching your posture. Do you flinch when she grows cold? Do you shrink when her words grow sharp? Do you become a boy again, uncertain, unstable, apologizing for the air you breathe? Most men do. Not because they're weak, but because no one ever taught them that this is the trial. They confuse love with approval, intimacy with validation. And when it's withdrawn, they collapse into emotional debt, trying to buy back something that was never for sale. You see, women don't test your logic. They test your presence. They don't want a fixer, a performer, or a boy who panics at shadows. They want to know, do you belong to yourself, or do you vanish when the winds change? And here's the painful truth. If you need her to be soft so you can stay strong, you're not strong. If her distance erases your worth, you had none to begin with. This isn't about passing her test. It's about facing your own. And most men, they never even knew it was happening. She's not the source of your chaos, she's the mirror. Carl Jung called it the anima, the feminine within the male psyche. Not just softness or sensitivity, but something far more mysterious and dangerous. She is the emotional image buried inside every man shifting, haunting, magnetic. She lives in his dreams, his longing, his fears of abandonment, his hunger to be chosen. And when a man has not faced her within, he projects her without. He assigns her face to the woman he loves. He pours into her all the emotion he has never learned to hold himself. And then when she withdraws, he doesn't just feel loss, he feels annihilation. That's why it hurts more than it should. Why her silence cuts deeper than her words. Why her moods feel like earthquakes in your nervous system. It's not about her. It's about the war inside you. You gave her the job of regulating your emotions because you never learned to do it on your own. You placed her on the throne of your internal world and called it love when really it was dependency. Emotional outsourcing dressed as romance. And when she tests you, she isn't trying to wound you. She's pressing on the cracks in your reality. She's not playing games. She's exposing where you are possessed not by her, but by the anima you never integrated. This is the battlefield Jung warned us about. The war between the man you present and the shadow you repress. And only one of them will survive her fire. She was never testing your kindness. She was testing your center. But most men, when faced with feminine intensity, default to one thing: niceness. Not real warmth, not solid presence. Just politeness soaked in fear, in the desperate hope that being agreeable will buy them love, or at least keep the peace. But peace that's bought with your self-respect is not peace. It's emotional surrender. The nice guy bends. He over-explains. He sacrifices truth for harmony. He becomes easy to love by becoming impossible to feel. And women feel that. Deeply. Instinctively. Because niceness isn't safety, it's a signal that says, I'll abandon myself to keep you here. But no woman, not one rooted in her soul, wants to carry a man who has erased his own edge, his disagreement, his tension, his truth. That's not intimacy. That's codependency. And in time, it makes her feel more alone next to you than she ever felt without you. You were never meant to be her emotional servant. You were meant to be a presence rooted, sharp, alive. Carl Jung warned of this collapse. The man who refuses to integrate his fire, his chaos, his hunger becomes split, a gentleman on the surface and a ghost underneath. And no matter how polite your performance is, the feminine eventually feels what's missing. Strength is not how softly you speak. It's how clearly you stand. And if you need to be liked to be whole, you've already disappeared. Control is brittle. Suppression is fear. But containment, that is strength. Most men confuse masculinity with dominance. Raise your voice, control. The room, impose your will. Others go the opposite way, mistaking silence for stoicism, passivity for peace. But both are rooted in fear. One lashes out, the other disappears. Neither holds. Because real power doesn't scream and it doesn't shrink. It contains. To contain is to remain unmoved, not numb but solid. It's the ability to hold chaos without collapsing, to feel the storm without becoming the storm. A woman doesn't test you because she needs control. She tests you to feel whether your center can survive her fire. She throws the wave not to drown you, but to see if you can still breathe. Not because she's cruel, but because she's intuitive. Jung spoke of the masculine archetype not as a warrior who conquers, but as a vessel, a force that gives form to the formless. The sacred container. And when a man develops this, not performance, not tactics, but embodied stillness, something shifts in her. She finally feels safe. Not because you fixed her emotions, but because you didn't flee from them. This is what she's asking every time her mood shifts without warning, every time her tone sharpens, every time she pulls away and watches you from across the void. Can you hold me without losing you? Containment is not detachment, it's devotion without surrender. It's the calm that says, I don't need to run. I was built for this. The feminine is not polite. It is not predictable. And it is certainly not manageable. It is wild, untamed, elemental. And if you expect her to always be soft, calm, and validating, you do not love a woman. You love a fantasy. Because real feminine energy does not come to comfort your ego. It comes to test your soul, not out of cruelty, but out of something far deeper instinct. The feminine is nature itself, storm and stillness, moonlight and madness, hunger and healing. And when she pushes you, when she withdraws her warmth or scorches you with doubt, it is not to destroy you. It is to burn off everything that is false. This is not abuse. This is initiation. Carl Jung understood this long before modern men ever argued over what it means to be alpha or high value. He saw that the feminine is the force that awakens, not with lectures, but with contradiction. She is not the professor, she is the flame. And when she pulls you into her emotional underworld, she is asking the question no words can contain, can you remain who you are when I become everything you fear? And this is where the unready man falls apart. He calls her toxic. He says she's crazy. He tries to silence the fire because it threatens the mask he wears. But she was never asking for a mask. She was searching for a mirror, a presence strong enough to contain her chaos without trying to fix it, control it, or run from it. Because the feminine does not want a master. She wants a man who doesn't vanish in the dark. You think it's her you're obsessed with, but it's not. It's the part of you you've never met, the one you buried, denied, and now project onto her, praying she'll hold it for you. Carl Jung called it the Anima, the unconscious feminine within every man. And when you don't face her inside, you begin chasing her outside you. Not as a person, but as a projection. You assign her face to every woman you fall for. You don't love her, you worship her. You pedestal her. You need her, desperately. Because you've never learned how to hold the emotional intensity she mirrors back to you. So when she pulls away, you panic. When she grows cold, you collapse. When she tests you, you mistake it for rejection. But it's not her you're afraid of losing. It's the piece of yourself you believe lives inside her. That's why her moods feel like life or death. Why you overreact to silence. Why her affection feels like oxygen and her absence feels like drowning. Because somewhere deep in your psyche, you've made her the guardian of your wholeness. And that is not love. That is spiritual dependency. A man who hasn't faced his anima is not choosing women, he's orbiting them, living for their approval, abandoning himself for their validation. And every time she tests him, he flinches, not because of her, but because of the unfinished war inside him. Until you hold your own feminine within, you will always beg her to do it for you. And no woman can carry what you refuse to claim. She's not trying to control you. She's reflecting you. And that's why it hurts. Because what you feel in her presence, the tension, the anxiety, the doubt, isn't being done to you. It's being pulled from you. She's not the source of your confusion. She's the mirror of it. And most men, when faced with that mirror, don't look deeper. They deflect. They blame. They call her manipulative, unstable, unfair. But the feminine doesn't test what is resolved. She presses where you're still fractured. When she withdraws and your confidence disappears, that's not her power, that's your absence. When her mood shifts and your identity collapses, it's not manipulation, it's a revealing. She's not orchestrating a game. She's exposing what you've hidden, the places in your psyche where you don't yet belong to yourself. Jung warned us what we do not face within, we will encounter as fate. And in relationships, that fate often shows up with beautiful eyes, a sharp tongue, and an emotional current strong enough to uproot everything false. She becomes the storm, but only because you built your life on sand. This is not emotional warfare. It is emotional truth. And while boys curse, The storm, men read it. They understand that her emotional waves are not meant to destroy them, but to challenge their foundation, to ask the most important question of all: are you real or are you performing? Because the feminine in its deepest form does not want to manipulate your strength. It wants to meet it. But first she must know, is it even there? Strength isn't how loud you speak. It's how quiet you stay when the world tries to shake you. We've been lied to, taught that strength looks like muscle money dominance, that to be powerful is to be aggressive and control, always one step ahead. But real power, real masculine power, it's stillness, it's emotional immovability in the face of chaos. And no one tests that more than the feminine, not because she wants to break you, but because she wants to see if you've ever truly met yourself. When her voice sharpens, when her emotions spike, when she withdraws all softness and stands in her fire, she's not looking to be managed. She's watching what you do with discomfort. Do you shrink? Do you lash out? Do you beg for peace like a boy begging his mother to calm down? Or do you stand? Carl Jung wrote that man's danger lies in becoming possessed by what he cannot name. And if you don't know how to hold tension without reacting, it will own you. You will orbit her mood, surrender your truth, and call it love when all you've done is abandon yourself. Stillness is not suppression. It's not checking out. It's the kind of presence that absorbs the storm without absorbing the fear. It's the ability to hear her pain without turning it into a personal crisis. Because the feminine does not want a reaction. She wants a witness. A man so rooted in himself, so clear in his core, that he becomes the calm she's never known and the fire she can finally trust. That's not weakness. That's strength that doesn't move just to prove it's alive. She doesn't fall for the mask. She might admire it at first, the way you smile on cue, speak softly, say all the right things. But deep down, she knows when she's looking at a man, and when she's looking at his performance. Carl Jung called it the persona, the social mask we wear, to be accepted, admired, approved. But a mask, no matter how polished, is hollow. And women, especially those in tune with the feminine, have a visceral sensitivity to emptiness. They feel the gap between your charm and your truth, between what you show and what you suppress. You think you're being kind. What she feels is distance. You think you're being emotionally safe. What she senses is emotional vacancy. Because real presence can't be rehearsed. It can't be scripted. It emerges only when the man behind the act finally shows up. And until that happens, her soul can't rest. Not because she wants perfection, but because something in her biology refuses to trust a ghost. This is why she tests. Not your intelligence, not your niceness, your realness. She wants to feel your edges, your roughness, your doubt, your heat. Not because she wants to be hurt, but because she wants to know that you exist beneath the role. The gentleman, the nice guy, the fixer, the pleaser, the emotionally safe, spiritually absent man. All of it is still performance until you break the mask and let her meet your center. The feminine doesn't need you to be flawless. She needs you to be felt. She's not waiting for a perfect man. She's waiting to feel a real one. You think she wants you polished, always saying the right things, never slipping, never doubting, always composed. But that's not presence. That's performance. That's the carefully curated version of you meant to please, not to connect. And it's thin, fragile, hollow. The truth is, the feminine doesn't trust perfection because it's always hiding something. She knows that beneath the mask of the flawless man lives a storm of unresolved tension, rage, unspoken grief, denied neediness camouflaged as kindness. And the more perfect you pretend to be, the more distant she feels. Not because she's hard to satisfy, but because she can't feel your depth. She doesn't need a man who never falters. She needs a man who stands real, even when it's uncomfortable. Jung warned us that most men split themselves in half. They show the light, hide the dark. They present the polished persona, repress the wildness, the sadness, the hunger, the truth. But what the feminine is drawn to isn't the mask, it's the integration. The man who can show up with discipline and desire, with tenderness and teeth, with clarity and contradiction, without apology. Because that's when she knows he's not trying to be loved. He's being. The feminine doesn't need a man who avoids conflict. She needs one who doesn't abandon himself inside it. Don't aim to be perfect. Aim to be whole. She doesn't fall for your image. She falls for your depth, the part of you that doesn't flinch when she gets real. Her rage isn't the threat. Her tears aren't the problem. They're the invitation, not into fixing her, but into facing yourself. Most men see a woman's intense emotion and immediately reach for one of two responses. They either try to soothe it or they run from it. They tell her to calm down, or they collapse and begin apologizing for things they didn't even do. Why? Because they believe her fire means something is wrong with her, with the relationship with them. But Carl Jung taught us that emotion is never just a surface event. It's a portal, a flare from the unconscious, asking, can you hold this, or will it own you? When she cries, when she explodes, when she tests you with the full voltage of her being, she's not asking for a solution. She's asking, can you stand here and not flinch? Her chaos is not chaos to punish you. It's chaos to purify you. She wants to know if your presence is real, if your stillness is rooted, if your love is strong enough to hold the storm without becoming it. Because if she senses that you fear her tears, that you avoid her darkness, that you need her happy in order to feel safe, she'll know she's loving a boy, not a man. And this is where most relationships silently die. Not in loud arguments, but in the subtle retreat of a man who cannot hold space. She doesn't need you to save her from her emotions. She needs to know you won't drown in them. To her, that is safety. That is strength. That is love. If her smile feels like sunlight, and her silence feels like death, you're not in love, you're in orbit, orbiting her emotions, her validation, her approval, her warmth. Because without her steady affection, you lose your ground. Not because she's cruel, but because you've never claimed your own center. Most men don't realize it's happening. They slowly shapeshift in the name of connection. They adjust their tone, their opinions, their desires, not out of love, but out of fear. Fear of being too much, too still, too honest, too sovereign. And so over time, their truth gets edited. Their edges get sanded down. They become emotionally stretchable, like rubber, soft enough to be liked, but too formless to be respected. Carl Jung warned us that what is not integrated becomes projected. And when a man has not integrated his core, his self, he begins orbiting the woman's mood as if it were the axis of his being. Her joy becomes his mission. Her disapproval becomes his destruction. He reacts. He pleads. He adapts again and again until one day he disappears into her. And that is the quiet death of the modern man. Not through abandonment, through self-erasure. She didn't want your compliance. She wanted your clarity. She wanted to feel the gravity of a man who remains unchanged by her weather, not out of coldness, but out of wholeness. Because when you lose yourself to please her, she doesn't feel loved. She feels alone. A man who cannot stand on his own 2 feet will forever need her to hold him up. And that's not a relationship. That's emotional dependency dressed up as devotion. Here's the paradox that breaks most men. The second you stop trying to win her is the moment she actually feels you. You've spent so much time performing, adjusting your tone, filtering your truth, anticipating her reactions. You've studied her like an exam you're desperate to pass. But love doesn't bloom in performance. And the test she's giving, it doesn't have a score. It only has one question. Are you real or are you rehearsed? Carl Jung said, A woman can only test what is not yet resolved in you. That's why it keeps happening. The withdrawal, the doubt, the push-pull. She's not looking to hurt you. She's pressing against the parts of you that still flinch. And when you try to impress her, rather than express yourself, she can feel the difference. She doesn't want you dancing for her affection. She wants to stand in the presence of a man who already knows his worth with or without her smile. You don't pass the test by saying the perfect thing. You pass it by not needing her reaction to validate your reality. This is what most men never understand. She's not asking you to be flawless. She's asking if you'll still be standing when she storms. Not controlling her, not fixing her, not decoding her. Just being fully, clearly, unapologetically. And when she feels that she stops testing, not because she gave up, but because she finally sees you. The man who doesn't move to earn love, but who is love because he no longer needs to prove it. That man doesn't chase. He draws her in without ever reaching. You were not born to chase approval, not from women, not from society, not even from the voice in your own head that still sounds like your father's disappointment or your mother's expectations. You were born to discover, forge, and embody a version of yourself that doesn't vanish when tested, rejected, or misunderstood. Most men live in reaction. They orbit love, bend to moods, flinch at silence, and call it romance. But this isn't love, it's emotional dependency. And as long as your identity hinges on how she sees you, how she treats you, or how she feels about you today, you haven't found your center. The truth. A woman cannot give you what you refuse to build. She cannot mother your self-worth or protect you from the storms of your own unclaimed soul. That's your task. That's your initiation. And the moment you stop expecting her to validate your existence, you become free. Not cold, not distant, but whole. This journey isn't about rejecting women. It's about no longer using them as mirrors to feel real. Real love doesn't begin when she loves you. It begins when you love yourself enough to stay rooted even when she doubts, retreats, or tests. So stop asking if she'll stay. Start asking, can I remain myself even when everything shakes? Because that's the kind of man she's been waiting for. And more importantly, that's the kind of man you've been waiting to become.